All right, so at the end of the last video, I was showing you the maybe most important two-key shortcut for compositing that there is, and that is Command J to duplicate. So duplicate will copy all the pixels from a selection or from a whole layer into a layer on top, directly on top. So let me show you with this color layer just so you understand. If I use my lasso and I select around this hand and bottle, right, the pixels within there, white, black, and colored pixels, and then I hit Command J, as long as I have that layer selected, right, Command J will make a new layer on top of that layer that was selected that duplicates just those elements. So sometimes when you're doing your jumble, you might want to have something that repeats. So right now I have this lion's head here. What if I want to use that lion's head somewhere else? Well, what I can do is select that layer, and a good way to figure out what layer it is to use the eyeball, right? And then use my lasso, select around it, I'm just going to do it roughly here, and then hit Command J. And now that isolates a copy of that lion's head onto a new layer, which as long as I'm selected on that layer, I can use the Move tool to move that. Whoops. This has to do with defaults again. So I clicked on the Move tool, but the setting, the default is to auto-select layer. I want to uncheck that. So it will only move the layer that I select myself instead of the layer that's on top. And now you see I have a copy of that lion's head, which I can then do Edit, Free Transform to, and I can flip it by right-clicking inside of it. I can rotate it. I can hold down Shift and stretch it, right? Or my very favorite, we're going to be doing a lot of this today, right-clicking and warping to kind of push and pull it in different directions, like it's cookie dough. So if I wanted to kind of connect the ropes here, I can warp it until it does that, as long as it's rasterized. All right, so now you've seen how Photopea and Photoshop are very similar. Now I need to get kind of serious and finish this up in one place. So I am going to just work through all 5 of my layers or more and make these changes to rasterized versions. So what do I have? First, I have a white layer at the bottom. And Rodrigo, that's the white layer that's at least 8 by 10 inches by 300 pixels per inch that then you drag your line art onto so that it fits the right pixel dimensions. So this is the one I have to start. I'm going to be messier with this right away. So I've already rasterized it. I can always check by right-clicking and seeing if rasterize is an option, and it's not. Right. Also, I don't see that little black box in the corner. So that means it's not a smart object. It's able to be edited. Then I can go right to Command T or Edit Free Transform, and I can go right to Warp. And then this gives me this 9 square kind of grid that I can push and pull to make a more interesting shape. And then I hit Return. Any transform command, whether you're scaling, rotating, I'll do it again, Command T. I'll rotate it a little bit, right? I have to hit Return to cement that transformation. And now let's delete some stuff. I'm going to use my lasso. I'm going to get rid of the eye. I'm going to get rid of, let's see, a little bit of the interior here. Just because I want to focus on the lines. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next layer. This is the griffin. It's a very different kind of line art. It's on multiply mode, so I see them layered on top of each other. I'm going to go immediately to Command T, and I'm going to go immediately to right-clicking and warping, and then pushing and pulling it. Seeing what kind of options I have. I kind of like the beak coming out of the side of the neck there. I like the legs overlapping each other. These are areas of a lot of density, but I think I want areas that are more open as well. So then I might take my lasso and take out a chunk as the griffin's feathers overlap this beak. And maybe take out a chunk here where the griffin's line art overlaps the wing. But I'll leave the density on the inside of the tail. In some places, not in others. And then this is a little awkward, but I'll resolve that once I have some more layers. Now, things I don't like is I don't like how my griffin's wing is just kind of cut off arbitrarily there. So what I could do is make that a more interesting edge by cutting away from it. All right, let's go to the next layer. Now this one is still a smart object. But before I rasterize it, I want to make it the size I want it. So same thing, edit, free transform, shortcut Command T in Photoshop. It's Option Command T on a Mac in Photop. And it's Alt Control T on a PC in Photop. And all of these are found under Edit, and they'll always teach you the shortcut. Shortcuts are not necessary, they're just helpful. So now I'm going to grow it as a smart object, and I'm going to grow it from the middle. So if I drag it from a corner, it will drag in that one direction, right? And unless I hold Shift, it won't distort it. I don't want it to distort it, I just want to grow it. But I want to grow it from the middle so it grows on all sides. So I'm going to hold down Option, and now it will grow it from the middle. Make it nice and big. Then I hit Return. Now it's the size I want within the pixel space. Now it's safe for me to right-click it and rasterize it, which then allows me to get rid of the watermark, the line at the top, anything I don't want. And then it also allows me to transform it with warp and delete and rotate, all that other stuff. Now, you see how the white pixels are blocking out the black pixels? That's because this is still set to normal mode. So to just see the dark pixels, I need to change that from normal to multiply. And then when I hit Command T and I start rotating it, I can see those lines and I can decide where I want them to go. And maybe I want to flip them horizontal. And then I want to rotate them. And I want to have some feet at the top, you know, not just at the bottom. And I really like this swish of the wing there. And then I might want to warp it. So you can layer these transformations on top of each other and have that head kind of push out to there. Have this density kind of push out a little bit further. Because I'm interested in playing with the lines. And now, what do I delete? Well, I can continue to kind of take chunks away to reveal things that I think are more important. Get rid of the eyeball. Get rid of some of the interior lines. What we're learning with this is what layers are being affected by what actions and how to control that. And it takes practice. And Rodrigo, I saw your hand up. So. All right. Now let's go to the next layer. Right? And this has some really fun kind of little detail with the rope. So I can Command T. But notice when I do Command T, it is not the whole thing like it should be. And that's because I had a selection active. So after you've picked a selection, because I erased that chunk, it's good to either click off of it with the lasso or just hit Command D will automatically deselect. Because sometimes you don't even know that you have a selection made. And now when I hit Command T, it will be the entirety of the layer that I can play with. And again, I'll right click and I'll warp. And I'll play with where these lines go, pushing and pulling them like they are cookie dough or silly putty. And I don't want to go too close to the edge. I want these to be free floating within my format. All right, something like that. And now I'm just going to tidy it up, trim it a little bit with my lasso. Ways of keeping it from being too recognizable, right? Jumbled lines instead of identifiable illustrations. And now the next layer. Or here, I'll delete a little bit more of this. So next layer is my copy of the lion, which is right here, already in a place where there's a lot of density. So I can Command T and I can move that around. And maybe I don't want the face of the lion, but I like these swooshes of the mane. I'm going to put those there. And then I delete from the face. Or I keep some of it. You can always do Command Z, and I'm just going to get rid of the eyeball. Okay, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. And then that last one, which is the one I took the color away from, I am going to isolate that and decide what line art do I like best from that that's not at the edges. And I'm just going to say it's the toad character itself. And then I'm going to duplicate it. And what's the shortcut for duplicating a selection? Command J. And then I don't need to delete the layer underneath, but I can just turn it off. And then when I really decide I don't want anything from it, I can delete it. Now I turn on the other layers, and I'm going to move that guy. Make sure it's selected. Move it around. Command T. Once you get to your last layers, it gets pretty confusing to see where things are. I might flip it. Maybe I'll flip it vertically. Right? Maybe rotate it a little bit. What lines do I want to keep? Where do I want them? I think I want them right here in this area. And then, because my transformation is still active, I haven't hit return, I can also right click and I can warp it to kind of set that curve. Kind of looks like the edge of an asteroid or something now instead of a frog. And then I can hit return, and now I can erase kind of identifying marks, right? Maybe get rid of the opening of the mouth. So they just feel like lines that are connecting. Or maybe it's another layer that I need to erase from. But I will get rid of the eye. So this is now the tricky part. Because you have everything roughly placed. But when there's something you don't want, like I don't want this little blip right here at the corner, I delete it, but I don't know what layer it's from. So then I can just go through each layer, select it, and then hit delete. Right? And it's actually from that layer. So this really gets you to pay attention to only affecting the layer that is selected. And all those marks, those are on 3 different layers. Now what if I want to get rid of this chunk here? I could go through all my layers. So this is where the move tool and its